If you're watching this video, it's probably because you've been vaping for a while and you're realizing there's actually a lot of negatives that come with having an addiction. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 benefits that really do happen to your brain and body when you quit vaping. In case you don't know me, my name is Andrew Cipriano. I'm the creator of the #1 podcast in the world for quitting vaping, the Quit Vaping Podcast, and I've created some really amazing resources for you to quit vaping for good in the bio. With that said, let's get going with today's video. The first benefit you're going to notice when you quit vaping is your mental health. There's a lot of reasons for this, so let's look at all of the different variables. Number 1 is that nicotine is actually classified as a poison. That means in addition to being harmful to every area of your body, it's also harmful to your brain. Whenever you take in a poison for your brain, obviously your mental health is going to suffer. For example, people who are normal nicotine users have a 2 times increase risk for depression. In addition to nicotine being a poison, the effect of addiction is that it creates anxiety in your body, and that's how addiction functions. So by its very nature, when you don't have nicotine at the ready all the time, your body's going to produce unnecessary and excessive anxiety to use that substance. So anybody who thinks that nicotine is helping them with anxiety doesn't understand that by its very nature, drug addiction creates anxiety. In addition, nicotine is classified as a stimulant similar to caffeine. And the whole nature of stimulants is that they ramp up your central nervous system, okay? This means that they increase your blood pressure, your heart rate, and they almost mirror a fake fight or flight system for your body, okay? That means that when you're using a stimulant often, you're going to have increased anxiety because that's exactly what stimulants do, is mirror your stress and anxiety response. In addition to the other mental health topics we've already covered, addiction makes you feel like you are trapped, okay? So when you're addicted to something and you feel like you don't have control, not only are you experiencing a loss of freedom with your life, you're also experiencing emotions like shame, regret, and guilt that wouldn't exist if you no longer had a control issue around a substance like nicotine. So in addition to the actual chemical damage that your brain is being done with nicotine and constant use of nicotine and vaping, and the hundreds of chemicals that are in vapes and the heavy metals that are killing your brain and body, in addition, you have all of the mental emotions to deal with that come with having an addiction. So the very first thing you're going to notice after you quit vaping is it's going to feel worse before it feels better. That's completely normal as your body rebalances its dopamine and its other hormones. But after you get through that first week or so, or even maybe a little bit before that, depending on your lifestyle, your exercise level, the amount of water you're drinking, you're going to start to feel better. And the better feel that you have will far extend anything you could have experienced when you were currently vaping, even though you were getting a lot of dopamine hits. Number 2 on the list is your physical health. Every single person in the world can admit that vaping is harmful to your health. To what extent, we're not quite sure. I've done a lot of research on the topics, and almost unanimously, every single source says that we don't really know the long-term effects of vaping. All we can do is predict and look at the current data we have, which only goes back about 8 to 10 years. What we do know is that vaping harms every single area of your body because it damages the endothelial cells, which deliver your blood and nutrients to your body and the cells in your body. In addition, there's heavy metals like zinc and nickel that are also in vapes that are being heated and put into your lungs. So there's a lot of different chemicals and heavy metals that are in vapes that we know are toxic to the body. If you vape for a while, like I did, I vaped for 7 years, and the noticeable symptoms I had was really difficulty breathing sometimes. I would get sharp pains in my chest that would actually peel me over and I couldn't breathe until they went away. And then I would also get random tight lungs and sharp pains throughout the day in my lungs. Since I've been working with clients and helping them quit vaping, I've experienced people who have been literally coughing up blood. I've had people throw up from the withdrawal. So vaping is not good for your body. We don't know to what extent. All we know is that when you quit, you're no longer going to be poisoning your body literally every 5 minutes of your waking life. So your health is going to start to improve. And again, with the physical health, it might get a little bit worse before it gets better, okay? Your brain and body have to regulate without nicotine. So you might feel like this intense and exaggerated soreness in your lungs for a couple of days. That will go away. That is a sign that you are healing. So your physical health, your endurance, your mental clarity will all improve, usually starting about the first week. Number 3 on the top 5 benefits of quitting vaping is the financial savings. Now, please understand that I get vaping is actually cheaper than cigarettes in most cases, and it's actually pretty cheap to be a vapor these days. Like, you can probably spend about 20 to 30 bucks and be pretty heavily nicotined up all weekend. But what you're missing out on is the opportunity cost of what you could be spending that money on that would not be damaging your body, but actually making you healthier and more intelligent over time. So it's important when we look at the money we're spending on something that's a vice, that's hurting us, we also look at what we're not spending the money on that could benefit our life instead of damage it, okay? So number 3 is there's clear and immediate financial gains you get when you quit, and you can use that money to invest in yourself instead of literally poisoning yourself and ending your life sooner. The number 4 benefit to quitting vaping is that you regain your dopamine levels. Now, realistically, I should put this as level 1, but I think it's one that most people don't talk about as much, so I figured if I started with that one, you wouldn't really get it. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, drive, and pleasure. Now, what happens is when you have an addiction or when you're using nicotine a lot, because of the way that vapes have been engineered with nicotine salts, they release a disproportionately high amount of dopamine. Now, you only have so much dopamine to use at one time, so what ends up happening is when you start vaping a lot, you're using a disproportionately high amount of dopamine on vaping. Now, the reason why this is so catastrophic to your life is because dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation and pleasure. So when you have left in your brain actively available because you're vaping all the time, you're going to be in an automatically less or worse mood all the time, and you're gonna have no motivation to do things that aren't releasing the same level of dopamine as nicotine and vapes, which is very, very hard to replicate with things like meaningful relationships and goals that are purposeful. In other words, you're using so much of your motivation and your pleasure on vaping, so you don't have enough left to enjoy your life. And if you have motivation issues, if you have drive issues, if you don't know what you're doing with your life, or you have a pretty low mood all the time, it really is because you're using a disproportionate amount of your dopamine, which is probably the most important chemical in your brain. You're abusing it on something that brings you no gain at all in your life. Now, the problem with this is, as we know how addiction works, the more that you vape, the more dopamine you use, the more dopamine you use, the worse you feel, the more you vape. This is the cycle that completely depletes who you are as a person, rips your motivation, makes you feel like crap all the time. So although I'm putting this as number 4, I think it's the most important to understand is that when you're vaping, it's not just that you're using your lungs and abusing your body, you're also literally destroying the chemical in your brain responsible for having you take meaningful action in your life and getting any pleasure and enjoyment out of your life as a whole. And this brings us to our 5th and final benefit on the top 5 today of quitting vaping. And this is that you improve the relationship you have with yourself. When you have a substance problem or you're using a substance that is doing harm to your body and you're doing that often, it damages the relationship you have with yourself. When you have a poor relationship with yourself, it's very hard to set big goals for yourself and actually go after them. When you try to quit vaping and you fail over and over again, you're not going to trust yourself. When you're constantly vaping all day long, you know it's bad for you, even if you're not fully admitting it. There's that little voice, you know it's there in the back of your head saying, this isn't good for us. When are we gonna quit? When are we gonna quit? And every single time you have that voice, and every single time you hit your vape and you know it's not good for you, it damages the relationship you have with yourself. And when you damage the relationship you have with yourself, you damage all the relationships you have with anyone in your life. Because your relationship with anybody else is a reflection of how you're doing with yourself. So it might not seem like it, but when you are in addiction, it's ruining all of your relationships all at once because it's ruining the relationship you have with yourself. So the top 5 benefits you're gonna get from quitting vaping are your mental health, your physical health, financial savings, and you can spend that money using something that's going to benefit your life instead of damage it. You're going to get your dopamine back, and you're gonna build the relationship back up with yourself so that you can actually create the life and the relationships you want with other people. Now, the last thing I want to say is that I'm not polarized on this subject. Nicotine itself is not good nor bad. Just be mindful that vapes, the way that they've been designed with nicotine salts, have been designed to be as addictive as humanly possible. So although nicotine is not bad nor good, and you can have a healthy relationship with any substance, just be mindful that vapes have been designed to make it very difficult to have a healthy relationship with them. The only chance you've got to actually do it is to be able to manage your thoughts and your emotions around the addiction. I call this the 3 addictions: the chemical addiction to nicotine, the mental addiction, which is your thoughts and your beliefs about yourself, where nicotine fits in your life, and the emotional addiction, because all addiction at its core is an emotional problem. If you can overcome all 3 addictions with this framework, you can either quit vaping for good, or you can create a healthier relationship with nicotine so you can have it and use it in your life when you see fit. If you'd like more information on this, I have links in the bio, and I would love to help you along your journey find where nicotine fits into your life. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.